your practice, either seated or laying down, whatever matches what you need. And you can either close your eyes or settle your eyes to one thing. And the intent we are working with today is trusting your gut. So just seeing where that lands for you this midday. And feeling into this central column of the core, which is way more than abdominals, that runs from the crown all the way to the base of the pelvis. And just sensing your gut, if you can, or breathing in a way that begins to send awareness there. Just sensing any amount that you can relax your gut. And if, like many of us, certainly myself included these days, if there's layers of tension and confusion, just normalizing that. Most of us have that. Even within yoga, many of us have a confusion of over gripping, confusing that with strength. So just sensing where you can make some progress of learning what it means to embody trust. In you. So beginning with directing the breath, well, we've already begun this, but we'll work with the 6 directions of the breath as our pranayama. So starting with the direction of down, which we already have, as if you're pouring water into a bowl, and you could use your hands to the belly to help you. And just sense where you can use belly breathing to relax. And just honoring that this often has a good measure of vulnerability, because we're often consciously or unconsciously holding our guts in. So just letting, to whatever degree is safe for you today, letting your vulnerability shine by relaxing your gut and listening in. And then from there, sensing where you can begin to sweep the breath from the direction of down into the back, bottom ribs and kidney area, adrenal area. And if it's useful, placing your hands to that area. Often I work with sending kindness to this area when there's this vibration and over gripping and fearfulness. Listening deeply. And then beginning to allow this organic transition from back, bottom ribs to side ribs. And again, if it's useful, placing your hands either same hand to same side or crossing the torso, holding you, hugging you with your presence, with your hands if you like. Breathing for you. Sometimes I've literally been visualizing myself and the prana going to me. And as we've heard in the check-in, it can feel like turning a vehicle around that has a lot of momentum, to give yourself permission to breathe for yourself. Let yourself take every single breath and see if you can do that. And then the next hand position is working with the direction of up. So you could either touch around the collarbone area or wrap your fingertips into your armpits and see where you can find some spaces in the upper lobes of the lungs. Sensing the way the heart is snuggled into the left lung and right lung on the left side. And then if you like, bringing one hand to sternum, one hand back to belly, sensing the front body after putting support into all these other places, down, back, sides, and up. Sensing how yoga is so beautifully designed to bring us into being relationship ready. And in this case, with our gut, your gut. So sensing this whole line from the mouth through to the belly. And then from here, we're going to transition right into child's pose. So taking yourself to getting any props. And actually, before we do that, we're going to be working with some inner leg line work today. So if you could grab a towel if that's convenient, or a blanket. I'm going to give a little tutorial on, basically most of you know about a rolled up something. I'm going to use a bath towel. And I'm going to fold it over once and then twice, like we used to do with the blankets. We will do again soon, so that I have a folded up towel. And then I'm going to roll that towel. So it's a bit smaller than the rolls that we use in the studio, but it will definitely do the trick for what we're up to today. So you can grab something, roll it up, take your time, and then meet up with us in child's pose. So big toes together, knees wide, getting any prop. So a lot of people like to prop behind the knees. I love a block under my head. You can either have the arms reaching forward or come into embryo, arms relaxing by the torso. And begin to use your child's pose to continue to see, is there any amount more that you can relax and listen into placing your mind into the gut, relaxing any amount more. And you might experiment with rolling the forehead side to side, sensing this relationship between relaxing the jaw and allowing the energy to drop into a healing mode, a learning mode. And then bringing the attention to the back bottom ribs, broadening across back bottom ribs. And when you are ready, coming to tabletop. Stacking shoulders over wrists, stacking hips over knees. And we'll just take some time to come into some bony landmarks of the pelvis. So lengthening back through the big toes. So you're coming into plantar flexion. You can even tap around a little bit to find the tops of the feet. And then from here, finding the front hip points. So we'll call that ASIS for short, and the back hip points. Depending on how much tissue you have, it might be easier or harder to find those points, but just see where you can get a hold of that. And then see where you can come into the pubic symphysis, so the pubic bone essentially that makes a triangle with the front hip points, and then just see where you can relax the belly any amount. Bring the front ribs towards the back ribs and then broaden across the back bottom ribs. And then on exhale, lift the back bottom ribs. The sit bones will reach towards the calves and you can look towards your navel. Come back to neutral, quote unquote, for the spine, tabletop, and then lift back bottom ribs. Sit bones reach towards calves. Head looks towards navel. So we're essentially doing pelvic tilts on hands and knees. And then from there, beginning to pour the weight onto the right side, similar to what we worked with last week. Option is you can push with the right, pull back and stay right there. If you like, you could pour more weight onto the right knee and come into a supported side plank, right? And then take it back down, hands and knees, and we'll take it to the other side. Press the ground away with the left as you're pulling with the right, either staying with both knees down or taking the right foot, planting it, coming into a supported side plank. And then just sensing the relationship between shoulder girdle and hip girdle, doing one more on each side. Pressing into the top of the right foot, pressing the ground away with the right hand, and then pulling back. Left arm reaches up, hand is active, moving the shoulder in a way that gives you information. Maybe you take that arm a little bit behind the line of the torso into chest opener. And then one more time on the left. Press the ground away, top of the left foot, rooting, and then reaching up. And then from there, go ahead and grab onto your roll. We're going to come onto the back, but I'm going to demo something briefly. We're going to work with getting a bit of information into the inner leg line and the quads, particularly the medial quad closest to the inner leg line. So I'm going to demo it for hopeful clarity. So if you have hamstring tightness, you might want to put another prop underneath your hips, because if you have tight hamstrings, I have hamstring flexibility but tight calves, so I can do this pretty easily. If hamstrings are tight, they tend to want to hover here, so getting some propping here might help. So keep that in mind if you feel too much tugging in the hamstrings. Grab onto your rolled up whatever. We're going to work here, and you can grab it anywhere on the inner leg line that feels like it gives you some activation. So my legs are slightly narrower than hips width distance. That will work for what we're doing today. So I'm going to grab onto my rolled up thing, and as if I'm trying to send it to someone over there, I'm going to roll my thighs in. And then I'm going to try to send it to myself. And we're going to work with exploring that internal rotation, external rotation. So go ahead and come on down to the back first. And give yourself a moment to set up. Please let me know if that was not audible. Okay, so far so good. So once you're on your back, most of you know these cues. We'll keep revisiting, broadening across back ribs. Grab onto your rolled up towel or whatever you're using. Sense if you need a little lift of the low back to support your hamstrings, and then reach the legs straight up. Begin to roll the thighs in like you're going to send that rolled up thing to someone in front of you, and then begin to send it towards you. And then keep breathing as you're getting information about the inner leg line. Do that 2 more times if that's doable. And then place the prop to the side. Couple of options here, either coming into Baddha Konasana, feet together, knees wide, or having your legs in cross-legged Sukhasana while you're laying down. If you're choosing cross-legged, do a few breaths with alternate feet in front. If you're choosing Baddha Konasana, keep contact with your active feet pressing into each other. And then from there, helping the legs back together. And we're gonna work with tadpole this morning, which is half frog, half straddle. So you can interlace the hands behind the head. If you're new to this, I'll do it as, you could watch a demo first and then join in. So hands behind the head, knees over the hip points. Again, the knees tend to want to rock over the belly. See if you can keep them over the hips. Pick the head and chest up, relax the head into the hands. Feet are active. Take a big breath across the back bottom ribs, and then reach the knees straight up to the ceiling. On exhale, elbows reach up. Take the right knee out into half frog, and then straighten the left leg into straddle. So inner thigh is towards the ceiling. Come back to center. This time both feet are in frog. Take an inhale here, and then on exhale, curl pubic bone, elbows reach up, straighten out through the right leg into straddle. And then come back to center, both knees in frog, knees at hip points. Inhale here. Exhale, curl pubic bone, reach the elbows out, straighten the left leg out. And you can play with both pointing and flexing to notice how that changes what's working. Inhale back to frog. Exhale, curl pubic bone, elbows reach up, straighten out through the right leg, low belly pulls in. Inhale, coming back through frog. Exhale, curl pubic bone, elbows reach up, straighten out through the left leg, low belly pulls in. Inhale through center. Exhale, curl pubic bone, straighten out through the right leg, elbows reach up, low belly pulls in. And then one more time on the left side. Inhale. Exhale, curl pubic bone, elbows reach up, straighten out through the left leg, low belly pulls in. Bring the legs back into frog, head and chest comes down. Gently help the knees back together, and then this time, knees together, feet wide. And then sensing any amount right around the front hip point, can you relax? We're looking for relaxing the psoas, one of the hip flexors. And then from here, we're gonna do one more piece of core work here, which is elbow to knee with the sit bone move. So hands behind the head. Option one is keeping feet down. Option two is picking feet up. If you're working too hard with feet up and you're struggling to keep your back ribs down, you can just bring the feet back down. Take an inhale across your back bottom ribs, and then curl the pubic bone towards the navel, elbows reach to the right, and then straighten out through the left leg, low belly pulls in. And then stage two is taking the fingertips right along the hamstring so you find the sit bone in the low glute. Curl the pubic bone again, pull the low belly down. Inhale, bend both knees. Curl the tailbone up so the knees are reaching straight up to the ceiling. And then on exhale, both elbows reach left, straighten through the right leg. Move the thigh bone away from pelvis, low belly pulls in. And then stage two, hand to sit bone, contract that area. Pull, curl up a second time, low belly pulls in. We'll do one more round here. Inhale to center. Curl the tailbone up. On exhale, both elbows reach right, straighten through the left leg. Low belly pulls in. Hand to sit bone, contract, curl up a second time, low belly pulls in. Inhale, bend both knees. Curl tailbone, elbows reach to the left on exhale, straighten through the right leg. Low belly pulls in. Stage two, hand on sit bone, contract, curl up a second time, low belly pulls in. Head and chest comes down, feet flat, and then again, coming into Baddha Konasana, feet together, knees wide. And then just sensing letting the energy move from the muscular contraction work, from the breath work. And then from there, helping the legs back together. We'll come into bridge. So feet right underneath the knees or a little bit forward. See what feels better in your hips. Outer edges of the feet parallel. And then let the arms be wherever you can find the most freedom in the uppermost lungs. Inhale, broaden across the back ribs. Exhale, press the ground away. Lift the hips up. And then use your basic moves here to work on your bridge pose. Active feet. Any amount more can you root into the inner edge of the big toe, the heel, the pinky toe side of the foot. Send the thigh bones forward, seeing if you can relax the front of pelvis, relax into the gut any amount. And then from here, we'll do a round of Uddiyana, relaxing internally, taking a deep, nourishing breath, filling all the way up. And then as smoothly as possible, exhale all the breath out. When the breath is empty, keep the breath out. Pull the belly back, lower down out of your bridge. Relaxing the belly muscles. Inhale. And just seeing if you can use that to keep unwinding core tension that gets in the way of you trusting you. From here, keeping neck relaxed, roll onto one side, coming up to tabletop. And then from here, we're gonna come into dolphin. So from your tabletop, elbows go right underneath your shoulders and touch the triceps. So you're really getting that elbow under shoulder alignment. Clasping hands or bringing forearms parallel. See what feels better in your shoulders. Move the shoulders and the shoulder blades away from the ears and then lift up between shoulder blades, seeing where you can. Sometimes I put the shoulder blades towards each other so I can see if I can notice that move. Bring your front ribs towards your back ribs. Option to work knees down. And then if you're going there, begin to curl the toes under and then sensing all of those bony landmarks. Front hip point, pubic bone, back hip point, lifting up and back. Seeing if you can use your dolphin to inhabit your core, this whole gut-brain connection, breathing into information that's constantly being traveled between those two. If it's interesting, you could lift a leg, doing about 3 breaths per leg. Use the power of the glutes to help take the weight away from the shoulder. When you are ready, gently place knees down, sitting back into embryo. So this time, knees wide, arms relaxing alongside the torso. So you're in deep internal rotation. See how that hugging of front body towards back body helps you to breathe into new areas. And then from there, let's come into tabletop and we'll come into downward facing dog. Hands come forward, press the ground away, and then spinning the bicep forward. When you are ready, curling toes under, sensing the pelvis in space. And then taking any moves that help you to connect into the intent here. So finding your own unique way in. We're gonna come right into lunge. So please either step your left leg straight up the mat, or as we've been working, take the left leg outside the hand, and then see where you can create safety and comfort here. Patting the knee by folding the mat or using your towel. And then we're gonna work into arrow lunge with possibly the knee down because we're very early on here, but I want to work into ASIS, that front hip point. So hands under shoulders on blocks or objects to bring the floor up to you, pressing into the top of the foot, and then maybe you're keeping that knee down. That's a fine place to work. Feel into the front hip point and where it's willing to go. If it's available, press into your plantar flexion, the top of that back foot, hovering the knee. And then the arrow aspect of this is reaching like you're shooting an arrow with that leg. Give yourself a check-in with your neck, using your exhales to move out tension. And then from there, gently place knee down. Take the hips back and then straighten into the front leg, coming into nomad's pose. So you can come into flexing those toes, lengthening and then folding. And again, just seeing where you can keep coming into using this practice to move out layers of tension that are available to move. I like to press into that heel and contract it back to find some information in the back line of the leg. And then point, so you can get into the tissues in the front of the ankle, maybe alternating them a bit to tease out some awareness there. And then from here, let's twist. So options, keeping both knees down and making 90-degree angles with your legs, option 1. Option 2, curl the back toes under and straighten the leg, lift the leg off the ground. And then from there, options again. Either planting the right hand onto a block, reaching the left arm up, keeping the hips as square as you can, or taking the right elbow outside the thigh, make a fist and blanket the hand. So creating the twist that works for your body in this moment, and seeing how you, if that left hip wants to come with you, keeping it anchored down, sensing the information you can get about your diaphragm, broadening across back ribs and side ribs. And then from there, unwind your twist, take yourself back, plank, knees up or knees down, finding a high quality transition to the ground, lengthening your core. And then reach each leg back, feel for the front hip point, and any amount of lengthening in your hip flexors, press into the tops of the feet. And then from here, I know some people, wave dancer does not work for them. So working with Cobra. Otherwise, I'm going to talk us through wave dancer. So hands are underneath shoulders. Some people this works really well. Some people it doesn't. So going gently, finding out what's true for you. Either way, reach through your legs a lot. Use your low glutes. So belly presses out slightly. And then you're inhaling into your ribs because your belly is pretty busy. Lift the ribs forward and up. And then relax the belly, lower down. So if that feels wonky in your body, in your nervous system, let that go and work with Cobra push-ups. If you're working with wave dancer, press the abdominals out onto the mat. Telescope ribs forward and up. Doing 3 more, whichever variation you're doing. Relax the belly completely, lower down. See where you can keep teasing out awareness of the front of the pelvis. Whenever you're finished, take a few breaths in crocodile, stacking the hands either forehead or cheek on the ground. And using the contact of the floor to the front of the pelvis, to the belly to get information. When you are ready, hands under shoulders, shoulder blades down the back, press the ground away to come up, and then transition back, down dog. If you have tightness in the hamstrings, you can always keep the knees bent to inhabit the torso more freely and accurately. Pressing the ground away with your arm strength, and then from here, either stepping the right leg straight up the mat or taking it out to the right, Placing the knee down, folding the mat or using your blanket. Hands on blocks or objects or on the ground if that does work for you. And then find your plantar flexion in the back foot. Find the press of the top of the foot and see where you can go into the front of left hip. I'm finding I want my blocks a little higher on this side, so noticing all of those unique side to side differences. Press the ground away with the left leg. And then maybe this is your arrow lunge. Maybe you begin to press into the top of the left foot and hover the knee. Either way, reaching strongly through the inner leg, through where you feel drawn to work today. Notice where you can create as much ease as possible in the neck, the jaw, the eyes. And then gently place the knee down, up, taking the information and the energy that you get from these poses. Take the hips back, straighten into the right leg, spread through your active foot, lengthen the ribs away from the hips, and then fold. Perhaps doing that again if that feels good. And then pressing into that heel as if you're trying to pull your yoga mat back. And then lengthening the ball of the foot towards the ground, breathing into the front of the ankle. And then from here, setting up your twist. Option one, what are you going to choose for your lower body? 2 90-degree angles or curling the toes under and straightening the legs. And then for the upper body, either rooting the left hand down and reaching the right arm up, or taking the elbow outside the thigh, connecting the hands. Either way, sensing if the pelvis wants to twist to the right, keeping it back, and then feeling into the rotation of the rib cage and what information that gives you about your diaphragm, about your gut, about your torso. And then when you're ready, unwind your twist. Frame your front foot, step up into your forward fold. Set up your feet into outer edges of your feet parallel. Press your hands strongly into the top of the quads. Engage the low abs. And then feel for that space of pubic bone and front hip points as you come on up. So we're going to do another Uddiyana with back traction. So front hip points come back over ankles, feet at hips with distance, outer edges of the feet parallel. So you're in an internal rotation. And then from there, bringing the hands again, letting the shoulders come up, and then really getting a sense of, can you sense what this action does, of letting some weight pour into the head of the quads. So with all the sitting that many of us are doing in our Zoom lives, all the congestion that gets in there, and see where you can tease out some space. So as much as you can, keep the knees over the ankles. You see mine want to creep forward because my lower legs are super tight. I'm just going to keep coaching them back, relaxing the belly. Take a deep breath in. Exhale everything out. When you're empty, keep the breath out, belly back and up. And then completely relax belly. See if you can find another place that you weren't relaxing. Inhale and then fold. Lengthen into flat back, hands on shins or hands on blocks. And then from there, step back plank. Knees up or knees down, lower down. Reach back through each leg, plant the top of the feet down. And then from there, let's come back into our cobra push-ups or the option of repeating wave dancer. So hands can be on your shoulders. You can play with something that frees up your shoulders more and gives you something more interesting. So if you're doing cobra push-ups, inhale, telescope ribs forward and up. Keep going with that. If you're doing wave dancer, press belly out, inhale, then reach ribs forward and up. And then as you come down, lengthen the abdominals across the ground. Do 3 or 4 of whichever you're choosing. And then when that is complete, lower down, take a moment. And then bend both knees. Begin to take your windshield wipering and then purposely use this to feel into those bony landmarks of the hips. Front hip point, pubic bone, you have the inguinal ligament that's connecting both of those, back hip points, sacrum, sit bones. And then when you're ready, pause. Find your way back into down dog, pressing the ground away, sensing this inverted V as you pick up the pelvis in space, using the low abs to pike the hips up and back. And then we'll come into a three-legged dog here. So you can step the feet a bit closer, lengthen the left leg, keep the leg straight to start. Use that to create extension in the hip, and then bend the knee, opening the hip. Using this to get into some interesting information. So you can play with straight leg and bent leg to see what information you can get about the left hip. Taking that to the other side when you're ready. Move the thigh bone away from the hip as you lower down. Switching sides. Bending the knee. Straightening the leg, getting all of the information you can about low belly, inner leg, active foot. And then from there, lowering down. Let's come into warrior one with back toes curled under. Left leg is coming forward. Come on to the ball of the back foot. Bend into the back knee. And then find your frontal hip points. And then just see for yourself what feels like even, what feels like you're not bunching up in the low back, you're not bunching up in the front. It takes a lot of time and research, right? And then soften the ribs, the front ribs down. From there, interlace your hands behind the base of skull bones, wrap the elbow tips forward, kick into both legs, lift your ribs, coming back any amount, using this to decongest the hip flexors on the right, and then feel for the work that you're doing of all of the fascia that wraps around the torso. From there, bring torso up, and then come into a straight leg. Finding a quality of hugging muscle to bone in that back leg. Hands could be on blocks, press the ground away, lengthen the spine, and then find your wings. Give that left leg a hug, and then bringing front ribs towards back ribs, bringing torso away from the thigh, and the bind is keeping you there and helping you find some information. Keep breathing. From there, release, straighten the left leg, vertical splits, hop the back foot in a bit. You might want to, I like to lower my blocks and scoot them ahead of my foot, and then stand so strongly on that left leg that the right leg comes up, and then play around with this. Tap the foot down, take it out to the side, tap it down. See where else you can reach that foot in space. Similar to your three-legged dog, playing with it, seeing what arises. And then from there, next pose is lounge lizard. So legs of low lunge. Take the right hand to the left hand to the front of the shin. The right hand is underneath the shoulder. And then it slides forward anywhere from 5 to 15 inches on a diagonal. If you have sensitivity in wrists, sometimes even shoulder, coming down onto a block on your forearm is your friend. Keep the back leg strong so that you're reaching through the back leg, and then see what you can get in information in the front of that right hip. Lengthen the right ribs forward and towards the ground. Find out the most friendly place for your neck and your gaze, maybe even resting your head on your hand. See where you can use this pose to relax your hip flexors, Relax your belly. Unwind your lounge lunge and either come right into downward facing dog or come through any vinyasa that makes sense for you right now. Maybe boat with hands on sit bones. Press back into down dog. And then again, moving front ribs towards back ribs, broadening across back and side ribs. When you're ready, step right foot forward. Warrior one with back toes curled under. Bend into that knee. Find your hip points. Facing forward, and then just sense what feels aligned for you in front of pelvis and back of pelvis. Lift your ribs, and then find the opposite interlace of the first side. Hands behind the head, elbow tips reach forward. Lengthen back, skull bones away from the top of the spine. Coming back any amount. And then again, using this to keep breathing space into the front of left hip. And then from there, bring torso up, reset to a straight left leg, grabbing props for your hands if you have them, or books or objects. Kick through that back leg. It can be really nice to use a wall to get that feedback. And then from there, lengthen, lengthen, lengthen. Find your airplane wings, palms face the floor, hug the triceps to the side ribs, and then wrap around the thigh. Give yourself a hug. Bring your front ribs towards your back ribs. I like to scissor my feet towards each other here. It feels interesting and useful to square my hips. And then keep pulling away from the thigh, and the bind is keeping you there. And then find the let go. Straighten the leg, hop the back foot in. For those of us who need to keep remembering what let go feels like, letting yourself remember that let go sensation. Vertical split. Stand on your strong right leg. Lift the left leg. Look towards your navel plane. Move your shoulders away from your ears. And then tapping the foot down, reaching it out to the side, and then beginning to find what else is possible. And then from there, resetting. Lounge lunge, so legs of low lunge. Frame the front foot with blocks. And then bring the left hand underneath left shoulder. Walking the hand out, perhaps putting the forearm on a block. And then even before you work with the wrist, sensing what's going on in the front of that left hip. Keep the right foot grounding down, and then lengthen the left ribs forward and towards the ground. Perhaps even closing your eyes, using this as a way to keep making connection with your gut. And then from there, unwind your lounge lunge. Looking forward, coming from your downward facing dog and taking yourself to the top of the mat. Either rounding up or coming up with a flat back. Once you're up, lift your ribs, then consider opening the front body. Bring the hands down, and then come back to your rolled up prop, please. So getting your roll between the inner thighs, and then set up your feet hips width distance. If you can do that with your prop, it might be a little wider. That's okay. I would say if it's narrower, just let the prop go, and you can do it with your attention. So we're looking at as if you were trying to squeeze onto the roll and slightly send it to someone behind you. Sort of like a Pez dispenser. So play with that. The light squeeze on the, in my case, towel. I'm sending it to someone behind me. And then from there, frontal hip points back over ankles. Sending the towel back and then bringing in the posterior chain. So you're getting the glutes, the low glutes particularly active, reaching down without jutting the pelvis forward, lifting the ribs. So we're coming into standing back bend. You can keep the hands so that your thumbs are on your sacrum. Just notice if you tend to want to shoot the pelvis forward to get your back bend. Keep the hips back, over front hips over ankles. Looking up if that is a friendly move for you. You could also still lift the ribs without looking back. You could look forward if your neck is sensitive. And then feel into creating space and aliveness and awareness. What is your connection to the space between the frontal hip point and the low ribs? Bringing the torso up, releasing your roll. And we'll come into another round of Uddiyana with back traction. So just taking any movements here to reset, and then come into hips back, knees stay over ankles as best you can. And then let some weight pour into the hands on the front of the thighs, relaxing the belly, take an inhale. Exhale, everything out. When the breath is empty, belly back, breath stays out. When you're ready, completely relax the abs, inhale. This time, if it's okay if you stay for standing, if it feels a little bit lightheaded, hold on to something. And then sensing where you can be in space to come into some movements with a Tadasana stance in the lower body. So feet at hips with distance, find the inner edge of the foot, root it down, root the pinky side of the foot down. And then the heel point is the whole line from the front of the heel to the back of the heel, seeing if you can pour weight right into that whole center of the heel. And then from there, beginning to interlace the hands, relaxing shoulders down. And then from there, just finding a small twist, letting the rib cage come to the right, and then back to center. And then taking it to the left, using this to study your felt sense of the pelvis and the contents of the pelvis in space. You could close your eyes. When that feels complete, taking a pause. And then I'll do a brief demo of our closing sequence. So sometimes if you have tightness in the neck, putting padding under the head can be really useful. I've been doing that lately, and it helps me with my neck so much. So what we're going to start with is either heels together, toes apart, so you're externally rotating the thighs and then tapping the inner edge of the foot. If heels don't touch, you could do the same thing with heels apart and just bring the toes towards each other. So you can come onto the back and see if heels touch. Sometimes I call that Charlie Chaplin feet, like a V, or a little bit wider. Place the hands to the belly and begin to work with, similar to our work in the inner leg line and the medial quad, big toes towards each other and then away. A lot of us have disconnect, weakness, tightness here, so take it easy. Slow it down if it's too much. When that feels complete, letting that go, hands on belly, seeing any amount more awareness of the legs, pelvis, and belly in space. And then from here, we'll work with bouncing the calves. So gently bouncing the calves, taking care of your knees and your joints, either both at the same time or one at the same, one alternating one then the other. Using this to move out anything that gets in the way of you trusting yourself and sensing your intuitive guidance moment to moment. And when that feels complete, let's take a, before Shavasana, come into Baddha Konasana, feet together, knees wide. So you can use blocks even if you don't need them, just to make it more restful. You could also choose knees together, feet wide, if that's a better pose for you. And then placing your hands on belly or anywhere else you like. Breathing for yourself. Breathing for this really good design to your Monday, to give yourself time to digest your lived experience and breathe in community. Letting yourself feel held. And then either staying in this shape or coming into any other shape for the let go of Shavasana. And seeing to what degree the let go is available today, and letting that be enough, honoring the truth of your body. Beginning to add A little breath to your inhale. Coming back to this intent of trusting your gut and honoring wherever you are on the continuum of that very big journey. First and foremost, breathing for yourself, relaxing belly, honoring your really good work and your contribution to this community today. Taking all the time you need to transition onto one side. And then coming back up, sensing the weight of the pelvis rooting you to your home, the earth. Lifting the ribs, lengthening the abdominals, and then to the degree that it's available, letting your confidence shine out, your trust in you. And then to seal our time together, bringing the hands to touch. If you like, bowing to seal our time. Thank you so much, everyone.
Thank you.
My pleasure. Thank you all. See you.
Thank you, Karuna.
Thank you.
My pleasure.
See you soon.
So much.
Yes, my pleasure. Tersh, how are you?
Was that your daughters we heard in the background?
Yes. I try to hide out here, but at one point they were opening the blinds and looking through and speaking. Yeah. Hold on one second. I'll open the door and see if they